Hello, welcome to the Personal Corona Recovery Program, or Reboot Yourself. My name is Peter Mueller and I've designed this 15-day program to help you to get through the 2 weeks plus time of government-imposed social distancing policies, and to help you, once we are through this whole corona situation, that you approach your professional and private life in a more effective manner. Today we have day 9, and the theme of the day is Think Before You Act. But before we go to day number 9's program, a brief reminder: please subscribe to our YouTube channel and send us an email to the email address find below with your comments and suggestions. When you subscribe to our YouTube channel, you can have also access to all the other YouTube videos we have available. But you know it, first things first, day 8 checkpoint. Did you take any actions after viewing day 1 to 8? I hope you did. Did you identify on yesterday's session 3 important goals professionally and private? There is always a good time to develop them. If not now, take the next weekend. It requires some time of thinking and you need to be in quiet and by yourself. Did you break down your major goals, if you have established already once? Broke it down into mini goals, into manageable steps with some timelines to it. Did you read the 31 to 35 lessons in the 101 Crucial Lessons book? Did you meditate? If you haven't done any of it, please do your homework, stop the video now and come back. You can always come back at YouTube. It's not going away, this video. All right, but I assume you have done most of it. So let's get to it. Think before you act. We briefly have to go through our brain. Yes. We talked about it in our meditation section. Here a little more detail, and in some other videos we talk more about the brain and its function and how it actually works. The brain has, in essence, this is a kind of a simplified version of it, but it has basically 3 major areas. You have the brain stem, the cerebellum, which is very close to the spine, the very lower part of the brain. And in this part of the brain, our vital functions are located. And this is an area where we don't have conscious control over it. Thank God that we don't have to, because our breathing function and our heart rate resides, for example, there. So if we would have to think about breathing at night while we sleep, we would have a hard time surviving. So our heart rate is controlled there. Our breathing, our blood pressure is controlled there, but blood pressure has also some other places where it is regulated. And the pain control center is also located there. As you might be aware, some of the opioid receptors and opioid addiction problems have something to do with this area of the brain. But obviously pain plays also a role in the next bigger layer of the brain, which is the limbic system or the midbrain. But before we go there, in the brain stem basically, there are all the survival functions located. And actually, when we go in meditation to very deep meditations, we can actually get close to the brain frequency where these centers are located. But now let's go to the limbic system. It's also called, very often referred to as the emotional brain, the emotional center. In this part of the brain resides all conceptual thinking, our values and our beliefs. So the values are the things which are really important to us, and our belief system is established there. And the important thing about beliefs is that 90% of them we establish between our age between 7 and 14. Now, some of our beliefs actually, they might be a little bit outdated, but this is a totally different subject matter. But just to make you aware that our values and beliefs, which are a major filter in our brain activity, is residing in this part of the brain. Our memory formation is also in this part of the brain, and our autonomous nervous system, the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, is working also out of this part where a lot of our subconscious functions are. For example, digestion. We don't have to think about to switch our liver on and to switch our acid production in the stomach on and off, or to have our intestine doing all its kind of processing and steering all the biochemical process of biochemical synthesis and so forth. All these parts are to some degree in this part of the brain. And this is also the part of the brain where all of our raw sensory stimuli are being basically filtered and digested, that we realize them as the perception, as we see, hear and smell things. So our raw stimuli go into that part and they are translated there for us, which creates our awareness and our consciousness. And also the reticular activating system is located in this part of the brain, which has a very important function for us. We come later to this one, but just to give you an idea, for example, if you go today and you say, oh, I want to buy a red car, and you go to the car dealership and you buy it or you don't buy it, the fact of the matter is, when you drive the next 2 weeks on the road, you see suddenly many more red cars than you ever thought before. But it's not that there are more red cars. It is with that one activity that you were searching specifically for red cars, the reticular activating system actually kept it as an important, that red cars as an important stimulus to look for, and whenever it hits our sensory system, we are actually being aware of it. And then the third part of the brain, our thinking brain, the neocortex or cortex, and I use often the term the frontal lobe, which covers the front part of the head, but the cortex is also on the side, the outer part of the brain. This is where we actually think, our consciousness, where we are in the now, where our cognitive skills are, where we are logic, where we make decisions, and where we are present, where we are basically in the now. Now, we live in a stimulus response world. Our mind is basically the brain in action. Day and night, our brain never stops working. So, and we are, through our perceptive instruments, eye, ear, nose, touch, and so forth, we are bombarded with stimuli every day, millions of stimuli, and we respond to them. Most of it subconsciously. We do something. For example, when we eat, our stomach starts producing acid and so forth. This is a subconscious action of the autonomic nervous system, and the body responds to our food intake. And then, for example, insulin is being excreted when we eat some sugar and transporting sugar out of the bloods into the cells. These are all subconscious. They all work in the stimulus response concept. A stimulus is being captured by one of our sensory organs, and then our body has a way to respond to it with the specific actions to it. Now, we have 3 levels to respond to a stimulus. The one is the lowest form, the lowest intellectual form is a reflex. And often you say, when people say, oh, he has a knee-jerk reaction. Yes, it comes, knee-jerk reaction is a reflex. When you go to the doctor, you sit down and he uses the hammer and your leg comes up. This is a patella reflex. Actually, I call it the brain didn't get a chance, which is true, because when you hit the tendon there, it goes, the nerve sends a signal to the spine, and before it goes to the brain between the 3rd and the 4th lumbar body, it is short-circuited and goes back automatically and sends a signal to your quadriceps to contract, and your knee goes up and your lower leg goes up. So that's what a reflex is, and that's a knee-jerk reaction. And many people in threatening life situations, they act very similarly. They act like they didn't give their brain a chance to think about it and do it. That's where the term knee-jerk reaction comes from. It is from the patella reflex. But the next level is the reactive level. The reaction, I call it the reaction without thinking. It is subconsciously programs dictating basically how we respond or how we act to it. I call it the autopilot. 95% of our daily activities runs in the autopilot, as I will explain a little bit later. And the third is our conscious response. 3. Option number 3, think before you act. But that makes only maximum 5% of our actions during the day. And that represents, to a certain degree, some kind of problem. Now, let's go to the number 2, to the autopilot. How does that actually work? Now, we have our raw stimuli, what we hear, see, smell, touch, taste. We get it, and it goes to our brain, and it goes basically through a filter system. And as filters, our values, beliefs, emotions, feelings, and experiences, they act as a filter, what makes it really to our logical brain for decision making. But a lot of it, 95%, actually it doesn't make it for a logical decision because it's perceived to be correct, and it goes through the body, and we actually act out on a subconscious basis, which is in most of our cases values and beliefs, what we say, which opinions we have about situations, and even actions we do, because we act in a lot of cases based on our values and our beliefs. And our beliefs, they are kind of a dangerous thing. As I said, 90% of them, they were formed when we were between 7 and 15. And how are beliefs formed? They are once a result of learning and reflection, but between 7 and 14 we didn't learn and reflect a heck of a lot. But that's in our days as mature individuals. By learning, we can actually rewrite certain beliefs which proven to be not correct, being incorrect, and having led or leading to false actions or to misleading or to wrong decisions, basically. The second form is our own experience, which helps us to form our beliefs. And the third form, which is very dangerous but very commonly used, and the younger we are, the more we are prone to it, it is blind acceptance of what other people say. We picked up some of our beliefs from friend Joe, who was 10 years old, and he made some profound statements about people, and because we liked Joe, and when Joe said something, some of his statements, they were the gospel, and they stick with us unless life experience continuously tells us that this is not correct. So we have to be aware of it. Our beliefs are the drivers, values and beliefs for all of our subconscious actions. And they are consistently being executed on a subconscious basis unless we check for them and rewrite them or not. So, and the third level, obviously, is think before you act. That you actually, and I go back to the previous chart, from the filters to the action, we interrupt the pattern. We give our frontal lobe a chance to be present with all of our sensory instruments, and giving our brain a chance between stimulus and response. We create literally a gap and give our conscious mind time to think. And what are we doing in this thinking? And actually, it looks here on the sheet of paper very, very complex, but our brain is very, very fast. So what we do, we are faced with a situation, we see something. So the first thing is we evaluate what does it mean, and we develop a range of options to respond to it. So we have a certain question and we develop 5 different possibilities basically to answer it. And each of our possible answers, we evaluate them fully through when implemented, what the outcome would be. And then we choose one of those options. We choose that option which gives us the most preferable result. And then we make a decision and say, yes, this is what we are going to do. And then it's followed by massive action. But that is a very logical way, but we don't do this very often. The problem is we don't create the gap. We go from stimulus to respond and live our subconscious programs. Now, how do we create this gap? And that is the most important. There are 3 approaches to it. The first is a mechanical approach. It's very simple. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, count to 3, and open your eyes. You have physically created the time, taking a breath. You have taken out the emotion, and emotions are the big triggers for knee-jerk reactions and quick responses. And then you have given time for your frontal lobe, for your logical mind to take the stimulus and actually work with it. And literally taking a step back, creating a distance between yourself and the situation. This is the mechanical approach. And really try it. Just closing your eyes, because when you close your eyes, it's the same in meditation. You shut down all the external stimuli going to your brain and keeping it busy in the background doing something. You really shut it down, and with all the background noise disappearing, you suddenly have the chance to focus on the subject matter at hand. And the second approach is the stop and wait approach. For example, for financial things, if you would simply institute a rule for you, whenever I spend $1, I think 1 minute before I spend $1. If it's $10, I have to think about 15 minutes before. If it's $100, I have to think about 1 day. I guarantee you, your financial behavior will change forever if before you spend $100, you let 1 day pass. That you have to think about it, what else you can do with $100 if it's really that a good idea to spend the $100 now on that. And for $1,000, give it a week. You will not believe how much your decision making will improve in financial matters. And for other situations, build in the stop and wait approach. Don't rush to anything, and there is a reason for it. Your mom and grandma, they told you, why don't you sleep over it first? That is exactly it. Give it a little time until the emotion is past. And for financial situations, create some rules for yourself. And the third is the gap approach. So first, you create literally the stop, literally stopping. S for stopping physically, then breathing, and then you do the following. For your daily life, you have to change, you have to get out of the reactive pattern. So the number one you do, you reduce or you control the incoming stimuli. So for example, unplug and disconnect. Because all those pesky stimuli, they keep your subconscious mind and your brain permanently in action, and you are subconsciously executing programs which are not necessarily very useful for you. So the first is control the external stimuli, where you go, in which state of mind you go to a meeting, you are prepared, and you just dabble into any kind of situation. So secondly, proactively designing the flow of the day. For important things, you go to the event being prepared. You reserve certain blocks during the day for conscious work, that you focus on something, that you go out of the autopilot mode. And third, practice mental discipline and stillness with meditation, because it carries over during the next day. So these kind of tools will help you to create the gap. The 5 things I just told you. Number 1, control the incoming stimuli. Unplug, disconnect in our days is number 1. Second, practice the mechanical approach. Close your eyes, take a deep breath. Take a deep breath is for many people sufficient. Then the moment of the emotion has passed and your brain has a chance to think. Number 3, the stop and wait approach, particularly for financial decisions. Give it a time, say $100 an hour. Don't spend $100 after you had the impulse to do it and before you do it. And plan your day with priorities where you have your thinking and decision time. Don't take decisions in an emotionally charged environment. Emotions are not a good decision maker. And start your daily meditation. These are the 5 tips to help you to create the gap and make better decisions and actions. That's it for today. Now, left box, I don't mention it anymore. On the right hand, for tomorrow is fitness, so you don't need to prepare yourself, but meditate, read 36 to 40 in the 101 Crucial Lessons book, practice the mechanical approach, and practice the stop and wait approach. Make one example tomorrow where you actually do it. You close your eyes as you take a breath before you say something or before you act. On that note, live with passion and see you tomorrow. And it's not over until it's over. Stay home, stay safe, and practice social distancing. See you tomorrow for Health and Fitness, Part 2. Thank you.